How's it going, YouTube? Coming today with another video, and today, guys, the video is going to be the K9 Thunder deck, and I posted this picture, and a lot of people have been asking a ton of questions about it, and like what the optimal line is, and what you do with it, and how do you get to the end board. So today we're going to be talking a lot about how you get there, and the why, and exactly how you play against some pretty terrifying hand traps in the game right now, like Droll, which can be a huge issue if you don't know how to play around it. So I do hope that you enjoyed today's video. If you haven't already checked out my sponsors, we're on Gem, Cloud, Arla, Imperium, Dragonshield, RW, MainPhaze, or Grimoire. Definitely go ahead and do so down below in the description. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already so we can hit our goal at 30,000. And without further ado, let's hop right into the gameplay. So there are some pretty crazy hand traps in the game, including Droll, but there's a lot of easier ways to play against them. So the number one thing they want to do here is just start off with Naroi. Naroi is going to summon the Azuna, which is going to dump the Lupus, and you really want to make sure that you're doing this line immediately because you're going to be making the Ripper, which beats the Droll. If they have the Droll Imperm, then they're just better, right? But more than likely they're not. Imperm's not super common at all right now, so definitely a card that we won't really see. Go ahead and add your Lantern here by detaching Naroi, which is very important. And then we will go ahead and use Chaotic Elements here to grab Jokul. And now we pretty much have the full setup of what we want. Summon out the Jokul, summon out the Dragon Dark, and then use Jokul here to go ahead and add Azuna. Now we have two bodies to play around a hand trap, which is really cool because now we get to Azuna and Lupus to make something like a Princess if our opponent has a rock, which we'll find out here in a moment, and I'll go in a little bit more detail about that. But we'll go ahead and link these two off and go into our IP, and then this way we'll get to our Hawk. And then we'll use the Lantern to revive the Naroi that we detached, which is really important as to why we got rid of this one here, because now we can go our Lantern effect into Case, which can grab us a follow-up Naroi for next turn, and then Naroi can check hand. Now, if your opponent had Nib and Perm, they were already dropping this on you before you do this, but let's say they waited, right? This is still fine, because you can go for, like, SP lines just in case, right? Because at that point you can at least save some of the board. But with the Dragonhawk, the Azuna, and the Lupus, we can actually just like recover from being nibbed by making an Imperial Princess, bringing back the Dragon Dark again, and then making the Colossus so we can still pass on, right? But now we have a full hand knowledge and we know exactly what we're up against. So now what we can do is use the Hawk to summon out the Dragon Dark. Then we can go ahead and tribute this for Colossus. Then we can overlay these two for our Imperial Princess. And then detach either one, doesn't matter. Bring back the Dragon Dark. And then now get rid of this for the second Colossus, which is pretty crazy because now we're passing on double Colossus, Ripper, the IP, Azuna, Lupus Engrave, Droll, Ash, right? So even if we get Dark Ruler, we still have Droll, which is kind of funny. But this is the full board, which is pretty nuts. But how do you get into the lines where you try to draw into like the Small World or the Spell Canceller? Because we do main those and they are going to be a little bit fishbowl-y because you have to see them. But we do have a way to try to get into those. All you really need here is Naroi. So Naroi will go off here and then grab our Jokul. And then Jokul can grab realistically whatever you need here. It doesn't really matter. But we'll go for our Azuna now. And then we will overlay and then go for our Ripper. And then the Ripper will detach Naroi again, go for the Lantern. And then the Lantern will come out and reborn the Naroi. Lantern will then grab the Case, which now we will add the Jokul again so we can use the effect of summon from hand. Now we'll check our opponent's hand, make sure they don't have anything crazy going on. Then we'll go Jokul, summon out Azuna, dump Lupus. And now we have these bodies available in case we need them later on. And then you simply just link these four off for Saryuya. And, you know, you try to draw into what you can draw into. Whether it's hand traps, whether it's more combo, whether it's spell canceller, right? So definitely something that we have as an option to us. We can still put up a pretty formidable board regardless, right? But this is definitely another great option. Let's say you look at their hand, they're playing like pure yummy, right? And you don't really care about like Marshmallow. Then you can actually just link off Ripper if you don't think that you'll really need it in case you want to go for like a Valen or something, which is perfectly fine too, right? You can just keep one of the other 5s on the board and get rid of the Ripper instead. I've seen that happen a couple times. You don't always need to keep it, but you can. I do like the Small World here, because if you have Small World and you have the Spell Canceller, you have a few really cool options available to you. because this bridges through the Droll and Fua because it's a wind and then it's a 5, so it helps you get into anything you need in your deck, and then you can also bridge through Droll or Fua to get 2 Spell Canceller, which is really cool. So just something else to keep in mind as well. And I really do like this deck a lot. I think that it's really powerful. And let's talk about the list. I did swap to double Cyclones. I think that you have to be playing that card right now for Dracotail. Being able to make the Flame miss its target and then be able to trade with Sting or Horn is very impactful. You have a ton of ways to search in this deck. I'm maining the Spell Canceller in the Small Worlds just so you have an additional consistency with an additional Blowout, mixed room in the sideboard. I play a ton of Bestials because you can afford the room for it, and I think that it's really good in most matchups right now. Then having the Mind Crush because you can look at your opponent's hand with Naroi and then be like, alright, I'm calling this card, right? Just so your opponent doesn't have a chance to use anything too crazy on you. And you can rip things like Habakiri or the Prayers or whatever you really need to, right? Which is really impactful. But overall, I really love this deck. Let me know what you think about the deck, because this is going to be something that I still play moving forward. Swapping between this and Striker a lot lately, just because I think this deck has been so crazy for me. But definitely go ahead and check out my Twitter, Twitch, Discord, Instagram if you haven't already, and subscribe to the channel. Catch you all in the next video. Thank you.